Hi, I'm Will Sharon. And if you're a parent, you've undoubtedly heard the wail from the crib in the middle of the night or the patter of little feet coming down the hallway and your child getting in bed with you. They've had a nightmare. And so what do? We comfort them. We say, "You're okay. You're safe now. You're with me. I'll never let anybody hurt you." Because of course we want them to feel safe. But sometimes we say, "Don't worry, it wasn't real." And that's a problem. Because in the moment, you bet it was real. And in the future, what we've done is we've started a process inadvertently of beginning to deny them access to a very powerful aspect of their human experience, their imagination. Now, look, not every child's dream is a nightmare. Some of them are really fantastical and highly entertaining. And it's really useful if you create an environment where your child feels like telling you his or her dreams is really kind of a cool thing to do, because that really gets that part of their life going. Okay, but today we're going to talk about nightmares, and to do that we have to digress for a bit and talk about neuroscience. So neuroscience is really in its infancy. I'll give you some examples. There's something called the default mode network, and that was discovered in 2001 by a neurologist at Washington University. It was just last year that another researcher discovered where the lymphatic system is in the brain. Now, even though the science is really new, we can also point to some amazing discoveries like new treatments for Parkinson's, for example. So, with that caveat, let's talk about the default mode network. It is thought to be the part of your brain that is most active and consumes a tremendous amount of energy when you're not doing anything. You're just sitting there. So what's going on? Well, you're ruminating, you're daydreaming, you're thinking about the future, you're time traveling, and you're worrying. That's what occurs in this particular part of the brain. However, recently there's a researcher in London named Robin Carhart-Harris, and what he has posited is that the default mode network is also the regulator of entropy, or chaos in the brain. Okay? His boss, David Nutt, puts it more succinctly. He says the default mode network is actually the source of psychological repression. Well, that doesn't sound good, except it is, actually. It's essential, because as adult human beings, we are bombarded with stimulus. And if we didn't have some kind of regulator, basically, we would descend into madness. So let's take a practical example. I'm sitting in a chair. I assume you're sitting in a chair. Now, the one that I'm sitting in, I took a lot of time to choose. So I know more detail about it than I do most chairs, right? In my life, I've seen tens of thousands of chairs. If I was sitting in a folding metal chair, my brain would take a nanosecond to identify that and move on. Why? Because I'm not interested, nor is my brain going to be able to tolerate me looking at all aspects of a folding metal chair. However, your 3-year-old, if she hasn't gone to preschool yet, has probably seen, 10 chairs, maybe 12. And so they are each an amazing experience. And if you've ever really watched a child in a chair, they look underneath it and they run their hands up and down the legs and they just explore the whole thing because it's entirely new. And all that experience, all that stimulus is coming in. Okay, it's the same thing with emotions. And for little children, my sense is there are really two sources of emotional content as they're beginning to build that catalog. The first one is the media. Now, in my own experience as a kid, there was a cartoon that Disney put out called Fantasia. And a part of that cartoon was something called The Sorcerer's Apprentice. And Mickey Mouse was the apprentice. And Mickey Mouse figured out by watching the sorcerer how to get a broom to carry the water that he was supposed to carry from the well to fill something up. Okay? Except he didn't know how to regulate it. So instead of one broom, it became 10, and then 100, and 1,000, and there was water pouring all over the place and a gigantic flood until the sorcerer came in and cleaned it all up. That scared the daylights out of me, and I had nightmares about that for months. Good old Walt Disney. Then there was a TV show, it was called Long John Silver's, but a pirate. Also scared me. So much so that I couldn't get out of bed at night to go to the bathroom. Okay, so what's happening here? What's happening is I was beginning to build an emotional catalog through the media. The other source is you, okay? And you're a primary source of emotional content for your child. So when he or she sees you having an argument with your significant other, they don't really understand that that's in the context of an intimate and loving relationship. What they do is they feel the powerful emotion. And sometimes I think, probably out of awareness, parents don't really want to get into the content of a child's nightmares because they're in the nightmare. Because the monster is embodying an emotion that the child has seen from them. So what are you supposed to do? Are you going to protect your child from these kinds of things? Well, that's, first of all, not possible and also not useful. What happens with an adult when they have a nightmare is most often we will go back into the dream and we will begin a dialogue with either that person or that animal or that monster and understand what the emotion is about. And as you do that, the vitality of that scariness begins to dissipate. So when your child crawls into the bed with you at night, one of the things you might say, because it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you don't really want to hear about a dream, is, you know what, let's go to sleep, and in the morning you can tell me about your dream. And so in the morning, it's important that you ask, gee, you want to take a minute and just tell me about that dream? And she might say, no, in which case, that's fine. It's her dream. She's a sovereign person, even though she's only 3 years old, and she gets not to talk about it. But it's important to keep that door open and to ask each time, without reproach, if she wants to talk about it. Because that is a way of beginning to understand and bring into that catalog a picture of what powerful emotion is about. And you know what? If you can do that, particularly with a boy child, in these days, you will be giving him a really powerful experience that he's not going to get in the culture right now. And that's really important, more so now than ever.